With me on the broadcast this minute now is Dr. Hassan Al-Hassan. He is a research fellow for Middle East policy at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, joining us from Bahrain. Thanks very much for being here. Let me begin by asking you for your assessment on the ground in Gaza right now.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me. The most important development in Gaza is the worsening humanitarian situation. So we've already got around 7,500 people thereabouts, and this number changes on an hourly basis, killed by Israeli airstrikes in Gaza, many of whom are unfortunately children and innocent civilians, of course. And the amount of humanitarian aid that has gone into the Strip has been woefully inadequate. It's a trickle, a drop in the ocean, according to many of the humanitarian agencies. Many of the hospitals have stopped working, either because of the bombardments or because of a lack of fuel and electricity. And so healthcare services in Gaza are pretty much on the verge of collapse, and that is if they haven't already collapsed. Militarily, operationally, we've seen Israel conduct limited ground operations in certain parts of Gaza. Some of these seem to have been repelled by Hamas, others may not have been. Yet there isn't yet the full-scale ground assault that Israel had been talking about. And there are several explanations that you've just mentioned in your introduction as to why that might be the case.
Right. The US has also attacked facilities in Syria linked to Iran, but it claims that the strikes were not linked to the Israel-Hamas war. What do you make of that? And will this move lead to a further escalation in tensions in the region?
There has already been a ripple effect of the ongoing conflict between Hamas and Israel throughout the region. So we've seen attacks against US forces and US bases coming out of pro-Iranian militias in Yemen, the Houthis in Iraq and in Syria that have targeted US bases in those countries, and also US assets in the Red Sea. In return, the Israelis have also conducted airstrikes against Syrian airports. There's a constant exchange of gunfire across the border with Lebanon. There are increasing American airstrikes against assets in Syria. From the American perspective, this is, on the one hand, meant, and President Biden said this very clearly 2 days ago, to send a very clear signal to Iran that the US will respond to further escalation. And the Iranians have also been very keen on sending a message that they are able to open up multiple fronts in this war. I think at the moment, none of the main actors, neither the United States nor Iran, would want this to spill over into a open confrontation, into a regional war, but the risk for miscalculation is of course always there. If we have a big strike by Hezbollah that kills many Israelis, or vice versa, then who knows? Hezbollah could get dragged into this conflict, so could the United States, and by extension, and in consequence, Iran.
Right, we are leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for being here on the broadcast and sharing those perspectives.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.